Hello friends, we are now going to learn about the crystal structures. The present discussion is devoted to the structure of materials, specifically to some of the arrangements that may be assumed by the atoms in the solid state. Within this framework, concept of crystallinity is introduced. For crystalline solids, the notion of crystal structure is presented specified in terms of a unit cell. The three common crystal structures found in metals are then discussed, along with the scheme by which crystallographic points, directions, and planes are expressed. Since the atoms tend to assume relatively fixed positions, this gives rise to the formation of crystals in the solid state. The atoms oscillate about the fixed locations and are in dynamic equilibrium rather than statically fixed. The three-dimensional network of imaginary lines connecting the atoms is called the space lattice, while the smallest unit having the full symmetry of the crystal is called the unit cell. The figure on the left-hand side shows a schematic representation of a unit cell. The specific unit cell for each metal is defined by its parameters, which are the edges of the unit cell, namely A along the x-axis. Here I am trying to show it over here. It is A along the x-axis, B along the y-axis, C along the z-axis, and the angle between them, angle alpha being the angle between B and C, angle beta between A and C, angle gamma between A and B. Fortunately, most of the important metals crystallize in either the cubic or hexagonal system, and only three types of space lattices are commonly encountered: the BCC, body-centered cubic, the FCC, face-centered cubic, and the HCP, close-packed hexagonal. Body-centered cubic, BCC. If the atoms are represented as spheres, the center atom touches each corner atom, but these corner atoms do not touch each other. Since each corner atom is shared by 8 adjoining cubes and the atom in the center cannot be shared by any other cube, the unit cell of BCC structure contains two atoms. Metals that have BCC structure include chromium, molybdenum, alpha iron, delta iron, vanadium, and so on. The second type of space lattice encountered in metals is face-centered cubic or FCC. In FCC structure, in addition to an atom at each corner of the cube, there is one at the center of each face, but no atom in the center of the cube. Each face atom touches the nearest corner atom. Since each corner atom is shared by 8 adjoining cubes and each face atom is shared by only one adjacent cube, the unit cell contains 4 atoms. This indicates that the FCC structure is more densely packed than the BCC. Metals that crystallize as FCC are aluminium, nickel, copper, gold, gamma iron, etc. It may be noted that all these metals are extremely malleable, that is, they can be deformed very easily. Another approach to show the difference in packing is to calculate the fraction of the volume of the FCC unit cell that is occupied by atoms and compare it to that of BCC. For FCC, this packing factor comes out to be 0.74. Students are advised to calculate the packing factor for BCC unit cell and compare the packing density. The third type of structure found in metals is hexagonal close packed or HCP. The arrangement of atoms is hexagonal close packed unit is shown in the adjoining figure. There are 6 atoms at the 6 corners of 2 hexagonal faces and 1 each at their face centers. Furthermore, there are 3 atoms in the middle layer touching all the atoms in 2 hexagonal layers. Examples of metals with HCP structure are magnesium, zinc, cadmium, hafnium, etc. A brief summary of what we have learned so far. Number 1. BCC structure has 2 atoms per unit cell and a packing density of 0.68. Point number 2. FCC structure has 4 atoms per unit cell and packing density of 0.74. And third one, metals having FCC structure are malleable. Polymorphism is the property of the material to exist in more than one type of crystal lattice in the solid state. If the change in structure is reversible, then the polymorphic change is known as allotropy. At least 15 metals show this property. The best known example is iron. The liquid iron during its solidification, during its cooling, solidifies at 1539 degrees centigrade and solidifies as delta iron, which has the BCC structure. On further cooling, the delta iron at 1401 degrees Celsius changes from the BCC to FCC. This is known as the gamma iron. On further cooling, the gamma iron at 910 degrees centigrade changes from FCC structure to BCC structure, which is known as alpha iron. This is a reversible process. The alpha iron at room temperature, when heated at 910 degrees centigrade, it changes from BCC to FCC, that is the gamma iron. On further heating, the gamma iron at 1401 degrees centigrade changes from the FCC again to BCC, but the BCC structure at higher temperature in iron is known as delta iron. This delta iron on further heating at 1539 degrees centigrade melts and we get liquid iron. Now it is the time to get ourselves acquainted with the concept of crystallographic planes and directions. Only gases, liquids and amorphous solids are truly isotropic. That is, their properties are same in every plane and direction. In crystallographic materials, the properties vary depending on the direction and the plane. Therefore, Miller indices is a system used to designate the specific direction and a specific plane in a crystalline material. Let us now understand what is meant by crystallographic planes and directions and how they are designated. The layers of atoms or the planes along which atoms are arranged are known as atomic or crystallographic planes. The relation of a set of planes to the axis of the unit cell is designated by Miller indices. One corner of the unit cell is assumed to be the origin of the space coordinates. For example, here let us consider corner A as, here I will show it over here. This is the corner A over here, corner A. So the corner A as the origin. The crystallographic plane is specified in terms of the reciprocal of the length of its intercept from the three axes measured from the origin of the coordinate axis. They are then reduced to a lowest common denominators to give the Miller indices HKL of the plane. In the cubic system shown, the cross-hatched plane BCHG. So here is the plane B, here it is BCHG. This is the plane. It intersects the y-axis at 1 unit. So let's see, here it is intersecting the y-axis at 1 unit. Here is 1 unit. The 1 unit measured from the origin A and is parallel to the x-axis. So this plane is parallel to the x-axis, which is over here. This is the x-axis. So this plane is parallel to the x-axis. So also this plane is parallel to the z-axis over here. That means it is intersecting these axes at infinity. Therefore, the illustrated plane has Miller indices of 1, 0, 0. So since it intersects at infinity, it is intersecting at infinity, intersecting y-axis at 1, intersecting z at infinity. We are using the reciprocals. So here are the reciprocals, and they are then reduced to the lowest common denominator. So therefore, the Miller indices for the plane BCHG are 0, 1, 0. If a plane cuts any axis on the negative side of the origin, the index will be negative and is indicated by placing a minus sign above the index as H K bar L. For example, we had started our discussion by considering point A as the origin. Now if we consider the plane ADEF, plane ADEF, this plane passes through the origin and its indices cannot be determined without changing the location of the origin. Hence, the location is shifted to point B. So from point A to point B, the location is shifted. Any point in the cube may be selected as the origin. So for convenience, we have taken point B as the origin. The plane ADEF now is parallel to the x-axis with B as the origin. The plane A, here it is, ADEF is with B as the origin. This plane is parallel to the x-axis and the z, but it intersects the y-axis at -1. Now this point A, which initially we had considered as origin, but now the origin has been shifted to location B over here. So with reference to the location B, plane ADEF is intersecting the y-axis at -1, and therefore the Miller indices of this plane are 0, bar 1, 0. Reciprocals are not used to determine indices of a direction. In order to arrive at a point on a given direction, consider that starting at the origin, it is necessary to move a distance u times the unit distance along the x-axis, v times the unit distance along the y-axis, and w times the unit distance along the z-axis. If u, v, and w are the smallest integers to accomplish the desired motion, they are the indices of the direction and denoted in square brackets. For example, in the figure, to determine the direction AC shown by the blue line starting at the origin point A, it is necessary to move 1 unit along the x-axis to the point D and 1 unit in the direction of y-axis to reach the point C. The direction AC would have indices of 1, 1, 0. In a cubic crystal, the direction that has the same indices as the plane to which it is perpendicular. That means direction AC having Miller indices 1, 1, 0 is perpendicular to a plane that has similar indices as 1, 1, 0. That is, the plane is intersecting x-axis at 1, y-axis at 1 and is parallel to z-axis. The students are advised to find out the indices for the direction AH shown by the orange line. The figure on the left hand side shows the variation of free energy with temperature for metals. Tm is the melting temperature. At this temperature, the free energy of the solid state and the liquid state is same. That is, the free energy difference between the two phases is zero. At any temperature below the melting point, the free energy of the solid is lower than that of the liquid. So the solid phase is stable and vice versa. The more is the difference between the free energy levels of the two phases, more is the driving force for the transformation. Crystallization is a transition from liquid to solid state and occurs in two stages: nuclei formation and crystal growth. When the temperature of the metal has dropped sufficiently below its freezing point, stable aggregates or nuclei appear. They appear spontaneously at various points in the liquid. These nuclei, which have now solidified, act as centers for further crystallization. As cooling continues, more atoms tend to freeze and they may attach themselves to the already existing nuclei or form new nuclei on, on their own. Each nucleus grows by attraction of atoms from the liquid into its space lattice. Crystal growth continues in three dimensions. The atoms attaching themselves in certain preferred directions, usually along the axis of the crystal. This gives rise to a characteristic tree-like structure which is known as dendrite. During crystallization, each nucleus is formed by chance. Therefore, the crystal axes are pointed at random and the dendrites growing from them will grow in different directions in each crystal. Finally, when all the liquid is consumed and the growing crystal boundaries hit against each other, their growth stops, leading to very irregular shapes. Such crystals found in commercial metals are called grains. Figure on the right hand side shows schematic representation of the various stages in the solidification of a polycrystalline material. The square grids depict unit cells. The figure A shows small crystallite nuclei. I will try to show it over here by marking them here. Here it is. Okay, where is the pointer? Yes, here it is. These are the small crystallites. This represents the unit cell. The growth of the crystallites, the obstruction of some grains that are adjacent to each other is seen in figure number B. So here in figure B, we can very well see that the crystals are growing and they are getting obstructed. The figure C shows the upon completion of solidification, grains having irregular shapes have formed. So here what we observe, the grains of irregular shape are visible over here. All the grains are having different shapes. And finally, the figure D shows the grain structure as it would appear under the microscope. The dark lines are the grain boundaries. Measurement of grain size is important because the size of the grains decide the mechanical properties of the metal. There are three common methods for grain size measurement. These methods are recommended by ASTM, that is American Society for Testing of Materials. These methods are comparison method, intercept or Heine method, and planimetric or Jeffreys method. Under the comparison method, the specimen must be properly prepared to reveal the grain structure, which is photographed at a magnification of 100x. It is then compared with the series of graded standard grain size charts ASTM 112-63. By trial and error, a match is secured and the grain size of the metal is designated by the number corresponding to the index number of the matching chart. Metals showing mixed grain sizes are rated in a similar manner, and it is customary in such a case to report the grain size in terms of two numbers denoting the approximate percentage of each size present. The comparison method is the most convenient and sufficiently accurate for specimens consisting of equiaxed grains. The ASTM grain size number n may be obtained as capital N, that is number of grains per square inch, is equal to 2 raised to n minus 1. Small n is the grain size number. For the other two methods, the students are advised to study these methods on their own. The properties of some materials are profoundly influenced by the presence of imperfections. Consequently, it is important to have a knowledge about the types of imperfections that exist and the role they play in affecting the behavior of materials. The most important crystal imperfections are vacancies, interstitials, and dislocations. Vacancy. The simplest of the point defects is a vacancy or a vacant site, one normally occupied from which an atom is missing. Vacancies are simply empty atom sites. Lattice vacancies, a stable feature of metals at all temperatures above absolute zero. By successive jumps of atoms, as in Chinese checkers, it is possible for a vacancy to move in the lattice structure and therefore play an important role in diffusion process. Atoms surrounding a vacancy tend to be close together, distorting the lattice planes. Another type of point defect is the interstitial. In lattice structures that are not closely packed and in alloys between the metals that have atoms that are widely different in atomic diameter, some of the atoms fall into the interstitial spaces of the lattice. Interstitials tend to push the surrounding atoms further apart and also produce distortion of the lattice planes. A dislocation is a linear or one-dimensional defect around which some of the atoms are misaligned. A dislocation may be defined as a disturbed region between two substantially perfect parts of a crystal. Two simple kinds of dislocations are the edge dislocation and the screw dislocation. The edge dislocation consists of an extra half plane of atoms in the crystal. Here we can see the extra half plane of atoms. Here it is in the top half, in the upper half of the crystal. There is a plane of three atoms, whereas in the lower region, there is no corresponding plane of atoms in the crystal here. So therefore, this type of defect is called as the edge dislocation. Another type of dislocation called a screw dislocation exists, which may be thought of as being formed by a shear stress that is applied to produce the distortion as shown in the figure. The upper front region of the crystal is shifted. Let me show you over. So here the upper portion appears to have shifted one atomic distance to the right relative to the bottom portion. To summarize, we have studied crystal structures BCC, FCC and HCP. We have also talked about polymorphism and allotropy, crystallographic planes and directions, and how they are designated using Miller indices. We have learnt about the process of crystallization, the technique of grain size measurement, and we have been introduced to the imperfections in solids.